Hello, I'm Colin Green, and you are listening to Spike Pit. Knave is a rules toolkit created by Ben Milton for running old school fantasy RPGs without classes. Adding, subtracting and modifying rules is both expected and encouraged. Knave's features include high compatibility with OSR games, fast to teach and easy to run, no classes, abilities are king, and optional player facing rules are available. It also uses a copper standard for treasure, and at the back of the book there is a list of 100 levelless spells. So there you go, folks. That is basically in Ben Milton, the designer's own words, and is a pretty good summary of what Knave is. So I ran a session Tuesday night. I was running a one-page adventure by Ben Milton called The Alchemist's Repose. First up, we all sat down, we generated some characters. A very quick and fun process it is too. It's a little bit different though. So you take the familiar 3d6, you roll all three of them, and the lowest number on any of the one dice is your stat bonus. In fact, it's basically your stat. So if you roll a 1, a 2 and a 6, you would score a 1 in that ability. As I say, there's the 6 stats that you'll all be familiar with: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom and charisma. And each of the abilities has 2 related values. There's a defense and a bonus. The bonus is the number that we just talked about, the number you rolled, and the defense is that number with 10 added to it. Once you've generated your 6 values, you can then swap 2 around. So there's a little bit of leeway to create a type of character that you want to play. But other than that, it's totally random. To this you add 2 days rations and a weapon of your choice from a list of starting weapons. Then there's a couple of tables. There's 3 tables for generating equipment. You've got a table for dungeoneering gear, and on that you just roll a d20. You get 2 pieces of dungeoneering gear. Then there's general gear chart 1 and general gear chart 2, and you get 1 item from each of those tables. You also roll a d20 for your armour, your starting armour, and there's another roll to see whether you've got a helmet and shield, or just a shield. So for example, on the armour chart, 1 to 3 on the d20 results in no armour. 4 to 14 is gambeson, which is like a padded coat. Then 5 to 15 to 19 is brigandine, and if you roll a 20, you are the lucky man, and you end up with a suit of chain armour. On the helmets and shields chart, there's also 4 results. You've got, on a 1 to 13, you've neither shield nor helm. On a 14 to 16, you've got a helmet. On a 17 to 19, you've got a shield. And on a 20, it's a helmet and a shield. And in play, it has to be said, all this rolling whilst we were generating was done by the players sitting round. I sat with the rules, and they just called out their scores, and I read out the results. And the whole thing was like a little mini game of its own, really. Quite fun, because you've got we had 5 players, and when somebody rolled up something that was a bit rubbish, the other players would laugh and mock them. So the whole thing was quite good fun. I mean, you had to be there to appreciate it, but I'm sure my listeners out there have got the imagination to see how that could get quite unruly in a short space of time. So anyway, there's some other stuff. If you want to, you can sort of roll character traits. For example, there's physique, face, skin, hair, clothing, virtue, a vice, your style of speech, a background, a misfortune, and then there's alignment. So what's that? That's 10 other random categories. You could pick and choose from them. You can roll them randomly. They're all D20 tables. Or you could do away with it altogether, or just take, say, alignment and background if you wanted that, or you could just roll on misfortunes. Any combination of those would work fine. We did them all just because we was enjoying it so much. I then fell back to Maze Rat's tables just to generate some randomly determined names, because they often work pretty well. We had one character who wanted to be called Catweasel, so he just chose his name. Then we had an Aberforth Moody, an Oswald Fisk, a Jilly Rummage, and a Jean-Claude Furlington. So I thought that was quite an interesting little set of names. It is worth noting that in Knave, you have hit dice or D8, and you don't add your Constitution modifier to it. In fact, Ben Milton has tinkered with the attributes, and they're a little bit different. What the reason he's done it is his thinking is that in a system that relies so heavily on the 6 abilities, it's important for each of them to play an important role to discourage a dump stats. Non-magical characters tend to dump the mental abilities, for example, so I increased their usefulness. So what he's done, and that was a quote direct from the text, he's got... I'll describe how the abilities are used in different circumstances. So strength, used for melee attacks and saves requiring physical power like lifting gates, bending bars, etc. Dexterity, used for saves requiring poise, speed and reflexes like dodging, climbing, sneaking, balancing, etc. Constitution, used for saves to resist poison, sickness, cold, etc. And the Constitution bonus is added to healing rolls. A PC's number of item slots is always equal to their Constitution defense. So that's the number I spoke about at the beginning. So the bonus plus 10. So, it could be 12, 13. A starting character would have anything from 11 to 16. Intelligence is used for saves requiring concentration and precision, such as wielding magic, resisting magical effects, recalling lore, crafting objects, tinkering with machinery, picking pockets, etc. Notice the picking pockets there is slid down into intelligence, normally associated with thieving and dexterity. Wisdom. Wisdom is used for range attacks. This is quite a big change. And saves requiring perception and intuition, such as tracking, navigating, searching for secret doors, detecting illusion, etc. Then charisma is used for saves to persuade, deceive, interrogate, intimidate, charm, provoke, etc. PCs may employ a number of henchmen equal to their charisma bonus. So a little bit of old school flavour there for the charisma. But quite a change around there, bringing some sort of thief skills down into intelligence. And then the big shake-up is using wisdom for your ranged attacks. That's going to catch a few people out. But in play, we found it was easy enough to jump on with that. I briefly mentioned that Constitution deals with encumbrance. You've got item slots that relate to your encumbrance defense ability. And an item slot it's generally an average size item, if there's such a thing. It's kind of down to the referee's discretion, but if you was going to do it purely in coins, it's the equivalent to 100 coins, and as a general guideline, a slot holds around £5 of weight. Now, medium-sized weapons like a sort of a longsword typically would take up 2 slots, whereas something like a dagger is 1 slot. And armour, your kind of light armours are 1 slot, your medium armours are 2 slots, and then your heavy armour, so chain, half plate and full plate, they take up 3, 4 and 5 slots respectively. So as you can imagine, 5 slots for your full plate, that's taking quite a chunk out of a character's ability to hump stuff around. Now, saving throws, they're slightly different. They're basically a saving throw is anything where a character is attempting to do something could result in uncertainty, or a failure has some sort of consequences. So you make a save by rolling a d20 and adding your relevant bonus, and you're trying to achieve a 15. So a 15 is the basic difficulty in the game, and then that is modified with the advantage disadvantage mechanic that most folks are familiar with now from 5e. You get to roll 2 d20s. If you've got advantage, you can take the highest result, or if you've got disadvantage, you're forced to take the lowest result. There are also opposed saves where instead of rolling against the DC 15, you're just rolling against someone else, be they an opponent or an NPC or a monster, or another member of the party you're perhaps trying to restrain, for instance. So that's quite simple. Then we've got standard reactions. So it's a 2d6 reaction table. I don't notice anything different there from standard BX or earlier editions of Dungeons and Dragons. Although it is worth noting that in Ben's Maze Rats design, he does away with... so typically you have hostile, unfriendly, unsure, talkative and helpful. So you've got 5 results. In Maze Rats, the unsure type of result is done away with, and you only have 4 results. So basically, reactions are either friendly or unfriendly, with differing, to either extreme. Then there is something called stunts. Oh no, sorry, I've skipped combat. Combat is pretty straightforward. Initiative is each side. Basically the characters roll on a 1 to 3. All of the enemies act. On a 4, 5, 6. All of the party acts. So it's as simple as that, and that is re-rolled each round. So you can end up with that slightly tense situation where the enemy has had a round, then they win the initiative for the next round, and they go straight into another round of attacks, and that can be quite deadly. And I actually quite enjoy that style of initiative, and it allows the party to sort out their actions amongst themselves, and it's quick. I've thought about initiative in systems quite a lot. I know it gets discussed a lot, but this works well, and like I say, it's quite fun. It can get a little bit deadly. So to make an attack on your turn, you can move up to your movement rate and then attack in melee. Basically, you're rolling using your strength bonus added to your D20 roll. You're trying to beat their armor defense value. If you do, you then roll your weapon damage. You can also do a player facing mechanic where basically the player is trying to save against damage, but I won't go into that. You get criticals, and on a critical or a fumble. On a fumble, you can damage your weapon. Weapons have got like this. What is it called? It's like quality value, and you lose a point of quality every time you fumble with a weapon. So let's have a look at a sword. A sword has got 3 quality. So if you go down to 0 quality, so 3 fumbles with that sword will see it destroyed, which I quite like. And if you are ever able to repair, so you get out of the dungeon, you've maybe taken 2 hits on your swords, there is a note that says for 10% of the item's cost you can repair a point of quality. So for 20% of the sword's cost you can get a fairly damaged sword repaired. So I thought that was good. A nice little bit. It's a little bit of bookkeeping there, admittedly, but it introduces this using up players' resources. And I've often thought equipment gets abused in Dungeons and Dragons, and typically, I mean, in the games we used to play, people use their stuff willy-nilly, you know, jamming their sword in, trying to lever open doors and stuff like that. You know, if you're a serious fighter or warrior, there's just no way you're going to do that. If your life depended on that sword, you're not going to use it to open tins of paint and stuff, are you? So, that's weapons and equipment getting damaged. What about PCs getting damaged? Well, when you get down to 0 hit points, you become unconscious. If you reach -1 hit point or less, you're dead. That is it. Roll up a new level 1 PC and rejoin the party as soon as possible. Now, there is a little section here on stunts, and I'm going to read it direct from the rules. Stunts are common combat manoeuvres such as stunning, shoving, disarming, tripping, sundering armour and so on. They are resolved with a versus save. They may not cause damage directly, but may do so indirectly. For example, pushing an enemy off a ledge. The referee is a final arbiter as to what stunts can be attempted in a given situation. So that's, to me, that's a tidy little section. Gives you an idea of the sort of things we're talking about. There's a few guidelines, a few sort of rules, i.e. can't do direct damage, but it's basically rulings, not rules, and allows for a little bit of more cinematic play in game. You can also gain advantage in combat. So this introduces a little bit of tactics, such as sneaking up on someone, attacking a target that's unaware. Someone could get disadvantaged for being off balance or on lower ground, disarmed, distracted, all the sort of typical tactical disadvantages that you could write reams and reams of rules about are just summed up with either being awarded advantage or disadvantage as everybody sees fit. And I think there's room for a little bit of negotiation between GM and players, but obviously you don't want to drag it out. We've talked about critical hits and fumbles. Morale is a standard morale roll that is 2d6, and this game is designed to use monsters and monster stats from the OSR with relatively little adjustment. You could take an old monster manual or creature catalogue, something like that, and just drop in monsters from there. Plus, of course, it's easy enough to generate your own. So with the morale roll, typically you're going to have a morale somewhere between 5 and 9, and you roll 2d6, compare the result, and if the roll's higher than the rating, the NPC or monster will attempt to flee, surrender, or parley, or somehow end the combat and save their skin. Talking of saving skin, that's morale dealt with. There's healing. The healing rules are pretty simple. After a meal and a full night's rest, PCs regain lost hit points, equal to a D8 plus their constitution bonus. Resting at a safe haven restores all lost hit points. So there, safe haven. Well, that's for you to determine. Obviously, being down in a dungeon, is that a safe haven? Well, perhaps if it could be made secure enough, but I suspect it means getting back to some sort of base and being able to properly relax. I've talked about monsters. The next section is a few paragraphs on adapting monsters, and it's useful guidance, but it's really simple. But he does the job. He sums it up, and I like this. This is one of the things I like about the OSR. This sort of compatibility that you get between rule sets and products, especially if the designers are considering it when they're writing the material. That's something I look for, and that's great because it means you're getting extra value for your buck, for your money. And who doesn't like to see their books getting well used? Nobody wants to see stuff just set off to one side. So if you can bring all your stuff to all your different systems, then I'm fully behind that. Last thing, second from last thing is character advancement. At 1,000 hit points, you gain a level. And he's put some guidance in here. PCs receive 50 XP for low risk accomplishments, 100 XP for moderate risk accomplishments, and 200 XPs for high risk accomplishments. Yeah, not a lot of help really, but if you I'm not a one really for faffing about with XPs, but if you're gonna, it's just sort of, it does give you a very rudimentary scale there. So it's basically 5 high risk accomplishments, or by that maybe 5 pretty heavy encounters, is gonna get you a level. When a character gains a level, and that's every level the same, so there's no sort of scaling. It's it's just as easy to get from 9th to 10th as it is from 1st to 2nd, and this game only goes up to 10th. When you gain a level, you roll a number of d8s equal to the new level to find out the new hit point maximum. If the result is less than the previous maximum, the maximum hit point increases by 1. You also raise the defense and bonus scores of free abilities. You can do this you can go through a random process, or you can pick the free abilities and bump them up by 1. You can never go higher than a +10, so that's the equivalent of a 20 defense ability bonus. Defense. Yeah, so it's a 20 ability defense is the maximum, or a +10 ability bonus. Now, the way it would work randomly is you roll a d20 for each ability in any order, raising that ability by 1 if the roll is less than the ability's defense. and you keep cycling through the abilities, stopping when 3 of them have advanced and skipping any abilities that have maxed out. The reason for using this method is that natural talents will tend to advance faster than weaknesses, which has an effect of making the PCs more varied and specialised rather than kind of averaging them out, which I thought was interesting, and that's the way I'm going to encourage people to do advancement in my game. And finally, magic. Spell lists from any old school RPG will work perfectly well with Knave, provided that they go up to level 9. As you know, there's lots of free spell lists out there and classic spell lists on the internet. People produce their own spells. I know Necrotic Gnome and Lost Pages do spells and magic systems. But in Knave, PCs only cast spells of their level or less. So, I mean, this makes total sense to me. A level 3 PC can only cast spells of level 0 to 3. And spells, this is quite a weird, quirky thing. Spells are cast out of spell books or similar. So, you can reskin the spell book, but basically a spell book or arcane thing that you're casting from has to be held in both hands and read aloud. So yes, it's quite apparent when somebody's casting a spell. They're not subtle, and each spell book can only be used once a day, and it only holds a single spell. This means that and takes up a slot in your equipment. So if a PC wants to be able to cast a wide variety of spells, they basically have to fill up most of their inventory with spell books. And there you get that classic image of a scholarly wizard piled high with books and scroll tubes and all manner of arcane paraphernalia, sort of stumbling through a dungeon. And I really like that image. I thought that was interesting. And the designer's note for this is, it always seemed odd to me that spell levels don't correspond to PC level in most OSR games. Well, now they do. I also took the abstract notion of spell slots and turned them into something concrete. PCs can cast as many spells as they can physically carry. Boost Constitution if you want your PC to carry around that mobile library. And I thought, yeah, that's something fresh. That's a way you can do it. PCs are unable to create, copy or transcribe spellbooks, and in order to gain new spellbooks, PCs must adventure for them by either recovering them from dungeons or looting them from other magicians. The higher the level of the spellbook, the rarer and more valuable it is. PCs openly carrying high spellbooks are likely to be hounded by bandits and wizards looking to acquire them. When a spell allows for a save, make an opposed intelligence save against the defender's relevant ability, usually dexterity for ranged attacks, constitution for life-draining spells, intelligence for mind-altering spells, or wisdom for illusions. The designer also notes that spellbooks can be easily reskinned as runestones, clay tablets, potions, scrolls, or whatever else fits in your campaign. If you wanted a more dangerous low magic setting, for example, you could make spellbooks, potions or scrolls that are only used once and then lost forever. The random spell generator found in my other game, Maze Rats, can be useful for generating ideas for new spells. And that is very true. I love the Maze Rats random spell generators, and advise anybody interested in Knave to also have a look at Maze Rats, because the two complement each other pretty well in my opinion. And then he closes the game out with 100 level-less spells. Basically, they use... they're levelless, but the power of them, quite a few of them, ramps up as level increases. So for example, let's have a look. We've got Befuddle. So number 10, Befuddle. Level, so your level equals creatures of your choice are unable to form new short-term memories for the duration of the spell. So if you're level 3, 3 creatures of your choice are unable to form new short-term memories for the duration of the spell. So that could be any number from 1 to 10. It corresponds with your level. So once you've got that spell, it doesn't become old hat. You know, you're constantly powering it up. As you grow, the spell grows, and I like that. I think it's good. And there's 100 of them, and they're quite characterful as well. It's not just the usual suspects, really. There's a few classics on there. And it's really brief. It's like the charm spell. I mean, you're going to need some rulings, but charm, it's your level of creatures treat you like a friend. So, you know, creatures, that could be a pretty powerful spell, yeah? So, that's it for the rules. And that, as they say, is a wrap. Big thanks goes out to you, the listener, for taking a bit of time out of your day to listen to Old Spike Pit. Take care, and I'll catch you later.